Alright guys, we are to the point of mounting these crossovers into the cabinet. I've got one of them mounted. I've got one of them sitting here next to me. I was going to let you guys see the mounting process. It's not much to it really. We're going to take this wiring and just slide this stuff in and bring it over the top a little bit here. That's kind of the trick. And slide this thing through the hole. And that's it for getting it in the box. We've got a couple here that are going to be the tweeter connections. And we've got woofer connections. And we've got the other connections that are going to go to the binding post cup and the tube connectors that are on the back. This one I've already screwed down. And I've got the wiring run out the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to show how to connect the tube connectors. And I had to put tube connectors on my pair. Everything we have in here that we could play this on has tube connectors on all of our good speaker cables. So they're going to get tube connectors, and then we're going to parallel it to the standard binding post cup. So it's going to have binding posts on the back of it. So we could plug anything we wanted into it here, but tube connectors also. So we can demo either or. So first thing we need to do when we're connecting the tube connectors is figure out how much to strip. And the way we do that is we insert this pin, the male end, all the way in so that we create a stop point. Otherwise, these things are completely hollow. There's nothing, no stop point in there. It's just a hollow copper tube. So low mass, high contact area. We've got the stop point. Now we're going to kind of mark how much of that we need to strip and see how much we need to strip off. And then we're going to strip this baby off. And I'm going to parallel another one right next to it there, so we're going to strip it off too, and then we're going to just basically just twist these two together. So we've got basically just one pin, one wire that we're connecting to both of them. So grab the old duckbill pliers and we'll get them twisted together. And once we get them twisted together, I will run some solder across them, kind of seal them there. And we've got our input part. So there's the white one. I'm going to do the same thing for the red. I've done this a whole bunch of times, so I already have a good idea how much I need to strip off of there. And if I need to, whenever I insert it, if it's a little bit long, I can trim a little bit off the end so that it is more of an optimal length. And then it's no problem. And I was actually able to get that one started a little before putting the pliers on. So this one will go a little faster. But nothing to it. Tube connectors are some of the easiest connections that there are out there. Also, it would probably help too if we, before we do this, if we insert these things in there a little bit and make sure that they are not too small of a hole, because we're going to have to tap these babies in. And yeah, it feels pretty good. Let's try the white one in there. Yeah, not bad. I want a good tight fit. I don't want it too loose. When it's tight going in, it's actually going to really grab it and hold on to it a little tighter. So now we're going to do a little soldering, just real quick here. I'm going to clean my soldering tip. Notice that the soldering gun's got a little bit of the flux built up on it from the last time we used it a few minutes ago. Now we're going to tin it, and we're going to put some solder on this thing. And really what the solder is doing on here is it's just sealing the copper up a little bit. We're going to seal it up so it doesn't oxidize, and then when we crimp it, and then we're going to solder it together, we're going to have a little more for it to grab against. Now we also need to put our heat shrink on, so we're going to cut a little piece of heat shrink, a little white piece, a little red piece. We're going to slide that baby on there and slide it far away so that it's not going to start shrinking on us, because this is still warm from when we just crimped it, or when we just soldered it. And that's just about right. So crimper, it's got the little titty on it there, and it's got the little V cut. And what we want to do is we want to put this on here so that the little V is right in the slit area, and the little titty on the back is going to compress it. So we're going to do it just like that and give it a good squeeze, and we're going to give it a good crimped connection. And if we need to, if we can look at the connection there, if we need to squeeze it a little bit, move it around, manipulate it, make sure it's good and straight, no problem. Same with the red. Slide it on, check it. I think I'd like to trim just a hair off of that one. So let's get the cutter. There was one that stuck out a little further than the other. Let's get that off of there. That looks pretty good. Same thing. We want that to go in the back side. So we're going to squeeze it on there. Make a nice crimped connection. And then I like to kind of squeeze some of the side pieces around it a little bit. Make sure that we've got lots of good contact area. Alright, next, we don't need these anymore. We're just going to solder those connections on there. So again, same thing. We want to get the soldering tip good and hot. We want to make sure it's clean. I know I'm a little out of frame here doing a little dusting on it there, just scraping it clean. Going to get some solder, and I'm going to make sure that there's plenty of solder on the tip. And then we're going to put that right on it. And we're going to feed solder into it. So basically what we're doing is we're heating it up. Notice I'm not trying to feed solder on it yet. We're going to heat it up a little bit, and then we're going to feed solder right onto that connection there. And we're basically just soldering it on there and sealing that connection and making a good solid connection so that thing won't ever pull out of there. Same thing on this side. Get it good and hot. We want to get a little heat on it first. Start warming that up a little bit. It's okay if it starts getting a little heat on the insulation, starts pulling it away a little bit. That's okay, because we're going to seal that with some heat shrink. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to get just a little more on there. That looks really good. All right, now the trick is be a little bit patient. Let this cool off for just a little bit, and then we slide the heat shrink down on there. Now while that's cooling off just a little bit, I'm going to pull the other end out, and we're going to strip it for the soldering to the terminal. So don't need quite as much on the terminal, just a little bit stripped off. And to solder these on the terminal, I'm going to need to tin it a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to strip this one just a little bit more. We're going to tin it a little bit, and we're going to do the same with the terminal cup that we're going to solder that onto. So that means, again, we're going to get this hot. We're going to clean any of the old flux off of there, and we're going to feed some solder onto these things. And just like that, that solder just takes right to that copper. Same here. Now the little terminal cups, these are actually brass. Not as pretty. They're the cheesy ones. That's what you get for $1.99. You get the cheesy ones. But you can spend an extra 50 bucks and get the really high quality tube connectors. And it does make quite an improvement on the clarity. So we've tinned those connections now. Basically we heated them up and we fed solder onto them. Next we're going to cut a little bit of heat shrink. You don't have to have a whole lot there. It's a little short one that we're going to cover up. And we'll slide that over it. Try to get it way back there out of the way, so hopefully it won't get in the way when we start soldering. And then we're going to solder these on. Now we also have to make sure when we solder it on there that we are soldering to the right terminal. Red wire is going to go to red there. And I don't know if I can get this to where you guys can see it. But I'm going to try to make as much surface contact as possible to that red wire to the red terminal. Yeah, I know this is going to be hard for you guys to see. Twist it around here a little bit. Get those up out of the way. And basically we're just laying it right on it, flat against it. And soldering it right to it. And it really just takes a few seconds. Then you have to wait for it to cool. And voila, there it is, soldered straight on there. And then we're going to do the same thing with the white one. The key is to get plenty of solder on your tip, and you're going to press it straight onto it, and just like that. Got it soldered on. We have to wait a few seconds for it to cool. There we go. Now we can slide this heat shrink up on here and seal up these connections. And this connection's probably, yeah, it's good enough. We can get it all on there. Almost there. Time to put a little heat on it. You're not going to hurt anything with the heat gun on this one. Just sealing it up. Same with the tube connectors. Just go around it. Shrink that baby up there, and then we're ready to screw them in and install them. Alright, looking pretty good there. The tube connectors, as you guys know, they press fit. So once we get them in there, we just tap them in. What I like to do is I like to put a little silicone around each one, just as a sealer, and it kind of helps glue it in once it's in there. With the binding post cup, there's screws that come with the kit, and that's just going to go flat into that recessed hole that's already cut perfectly for it. Fits right in there, and we just screw it on. So I'm going to knock these out, and then we're going to hook the drivers up and put some insulation in, and we'll have a pair of speakers up and playing. Alright guys, we are to the point now where both crossovers have been mounted in the boxes, and I have connected the two connectors and binding post cups on the back, and we're down to just doing the old insulation thing. And what I've done is I've just cut some pieces of fiberglass insulation back there, and there's no super special art to this, like it has to be done this way or something away. What you want to do is you want to cover each wall of the box. That's what we're really looking for. So what I'm doing is I'm just sliding some of this fiberglass insulation in there, and I'm kind of working it back into the back and putting it on the side walls. And once I get it kind of on the side walls like I want, then I can figure out where I want the next group of it. I'm going to need to put a little strip across the back there. And whatever I do to one speaker, I want to use the same things to do in the other speaker. So in this one, I'm going to pull off this amount here, and I'm going to fit it into the back side. And I'm going to put this piece across the top in the back. What we're wanting to do is just cover any reflective surfaces in there. We don't want a bare wall for that stuff to reflect off of. We want to make it a nice little nest of that stuff in there. And the thing about fiberglass insulation is it'll pretty much stay wherever you put it. So it's very forgiving that way. So I'm pretty happy with this one. Put this last little piece at the back, and it's going to cover over the crossover at the bottom. It's going to leave just enough room for the magnet and the motor structure to fit in there, and it's simply lined with insulation. That's it. It's a sealed box, so again, we're just covering all the walls and making sure that we don't have reflective surfaces in there. I'm going to pull this one around just a little. That's it. That's all there is to it. That's it as far as assembly videos that I'm going to do on the little desktop mini. We're going to, I'm just going to tell you, you can strip these wires and solder them directly to the connectors and put your heat shrink on it just like we did before. Remember guys that there is a reverse polarity on the tweeter. It is supposed to be that way. So you're going to flip the positive and negative. So the thicker or the wider terminal is always positive on every driver. The narrower one is always negative. So we're going to do the narrow one to the red. We're going to do the wider one to the white. Same way on the woofer, but we're not flipping the polarity. We've got wider terminals that are the positive. We got the narrow terminals that are the negative. We're going to strip those wires, and I'm just going to solder those right to it. Red's going to go to positive, white's going to go to negative, and then we're going to drop the drivers in there and screw them down. Alright guys, we have battened these things up now, and I think the blue looks pretty good. It looks really good with the white drivers. This was super easy kit to build, and hopefully it will lead you guys into wanting to do more and more DIY kits. Unfortunately, I only have enough drivers in stock for about 400 pair, and I think in the first week since I did the introductory video, we've sold about 50 pair already. So I don't know how long we're going to have these, but I'm going to blow these things out for you guys at that ridiculous price until they're gone. And then hopefully that'll give you guys a little confidence to do more DIY. And we're going to be doing videos on the new X Bravo, and I'm going to do a build by build on that also, and that's one that uses our drivers. I'll be stocking all of those, and you'll be able to order those anytime. And I hope you enjoyed the step-by-step process. I know you guys like watching that stuff. I'm amazed that people will want to watch me work, but apparently you guys do. And I appreciate that very much, and thank you for the support and for subscribing, and stay tuned for more videos.